Guys, today I've got what I'm calling a beginner's guide to playing galloping metal riffs. Now, let me clarify real quick. This doesn't necessarily mean you're a beginner guitar player. I mean, maybe you are just starting to play heavy metal and this lesson is fine for you, but I know there are a lot of you, and you've told me this, a lot of you are really at an intermediate level, but this one particular method we call galloping is something that you kind of struggle with. So I'm going to take you through my process and the way I approach this method, and I hope that this helps you. Now, we will have a complete riff. Actually, it's kind of a 2-for-1. There's 2 riffs you're going to learn towards the end of the lesson. By the way, my Patreon supporters, you guys have the tabs and the backing tracks to this riff. In the video here, in this lesson, I'm going to break everything down again, kind of my approach to it, and I hope that this is something that you can take and implement and that it truly helps you just nail down this really killer technique. First things first, let's talk about the picking technique itself. So essentially, all galloping is just alternate picking. It's just a fancier style of alternate picking. In other words, you're not playing downstrokes, okay? You're alternate picking back and forth. So watch my picking hand here. I'm just going to be playing the E string, and I'm going to add a palm mute to this as well. This kind of goes hand in hand. No pun intended, we're guitar players, but it kind of goes hand in hand with the galloping technique, the palm muting, because normally you're palm muting as you're galloping, okay? So just watch my hand here. So normally a gallop is just a like a 3-note pattern, just a 1, 2, 3, a 3-note picking pattern, but it's done very quick and it's almost like a snappy. What I'd recommend doing is just getting used to the motion, the back and forth motion, just 1, 2, 3, stop. 1, 2, 3, stop. So let's do that real quick together, okay? Now notice I'm not playing the entire power chord. I'm not going... That sounds cool. That's an awesome way to do it. But for this lesson, we're just focusing on the 1 string again, and we're just playing the E string here. That's it. Now, second thing I want to talk to you about is how you hold the pick, and I probably should have talked about this first. So if you had trouble doing what we just did, I'm going to show you a little trick that I use, and this, let me just point this out. This may or may not work for you. A lot of times a guitar player say, well, this is the way I do it, so this is the way you must do it. I don't believe that at all. I think we're all a little bit different. So I'm going to show you how I do it. Try it, see if that works for you, but at least you can maybe do a variation of what I'm about to show you if what I show you doesn't quite work out for you, okay? And again, if you're having trouble doing what we just did, I think this might help you. So one thing I noticed, and this is really just a natural and kind of organic thing. I like using the word organic because it makes me think of organic food, and hey, you guys know I like to eat a lot. So how I hold my pick, for one, I've got 2 fingers on one side of it, okay? And then I've got my thumb on the other side there, if you can see that. That's just kind of the typical way I hold my pick. I have got my middle finger kind of slightly bent there, if you can see the both fingers there. And again, guys, this is the way I do it. This is just what kind of feels more natural to me. I want you to go with what feels more natural to you. So as you're holding your pick, if there's a little variation in the way you hold it, that's fine if that feels most natural to you. But one thing I want to point out in regards to galloping, or really just alternate picking in general, is my pick tends to kind of direct itself like towards the bridge here, not so much towards the neck. So, and I gave a lesson on this. I gave a video on this a while back on how I hold my pick, you know, downstrokes versus alternate picking, something like that. I'll throw it up there if you guys want to catch that later. But one thing I noticed when I'm playing downstrokes, my pick is not angled all the way to the neck, but sort of in that vicinity. It's kind of going downward like that, like. Whereas when I'm alternate picking, I notice that my pick sort of has a natural gravitation to the opposite, towards the opposite direction. So kind of watch carefully here if you can see this. And I don't know how well you can see that, but just know that my pick when I'm alternate picking, aka galloping, is sort of going in that direction there, as opposed to when I'm playing downstrokes, it's kind of going a little bit the other way there. Now, I don't know why that is, guys. I just noticed when I'm playing, I look down and that's what's happening. That's just kind of the way my hands gravitate. So just knowing that and acknowledging that and watching your hands as you perform the gallop as we did earlier. Remember, just practice on that one string. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so just be aware of the position of your hands, especially your picking hand, and of course how you're holding the pick. Now before we move on, I just want to reiterate that just because I do things a certain way and I show you this way, it doesn't mean that my way is necessarily right for you. So again, if that doesn't feel natural to you, then give yourself the freedom to make some subtle adjustments to find what feels most natural to you. What I'm giving you here is kind of a template, kind of a guide to go by, but understand that we're all a little different, okay? It kind of irks me when I hear guitar players say, well, this is the way you hold your pick and this is the way you're supposed to pick and do this. I just don't believe that to be true, because all guitar players, even the best of them out there, they have variations. They have different little nuances and different things, different techniques. So, take what I'm giving you here, use it as a template, as a guide, but feel free to make some adjustments along the way and, find what feels most natural to you. All right, now let's move forward and let's come up with something where we're putting the galloping technique into a practical use, okay? Which this means what we're about to play here, what I'm going to share with you, this is something that you can play in an actual song. We're kind of bridging that gap, and then of course we're going to learn the actual galloping riff that I've got for you guys. That's coming up right after this. So the exercise I want you to play here is going to actually have you galloping and playing some downstrokes. So we're going to mix the alternate picking with downstrokes together in the same riff. We're only going to play this on one string. So let me play this for you real quick. Watch everything that I'm doing here, because I want you to replicate this, okay? I'm going to play this kind of slow. Combination of the downstrokes with the galloping, the alternate picking here. And the reason why I have you doing this is because oftentimes that's what you'll be doing in what I call a real life scenario, meaning playing an actual riff that you'd be using in a song. Of course, there are different variations to that. There's several variations to that, but kind of keeping it simple here by doing the 1, 2, 3, the gallop, then going to downstrokes, then gallop again, then going to downstrokes. So let me go through this really slow here, okay? So 1, 2, 3, the gallop, then 2 downstrokes, okay? Try to separate this for a moment, okay? Do the gallop, then 2 downstrokes. Do the gallop, downstrokes. Now integrate them both together. As you get more used to the technique, and again combining those two, the downstrokes with the galloping, because remember we're talking about how I hold my pick, and again this is more specific to me, but I believe it may help you as well. My hand tends to fall, the picking motion tends to fall more towards the bridge, going in that direction, not like directly to the bridge, but in that direction, whereas when I switch over to playing downstrokes, I make just a minor adjustment in how I hold my pick, which my middle finger tends to flatten out just a little bit more, and my pick kind of goes the opposite direction, okay? That might seem like a lot, and I don't necessarily want you to remember that. It's like, oh, I'm galloping, so I'm holding my pick this way. Now I got to think about this and switch to the other way for the downstrokes. I don't want you guys to think like that at all. what I want you to do is more so notice what's happening, okay, in that area with that picking hand. What are you naturally gravitating towards? How are you holding the pick when you're doing this, as opposed to saying, well, I need to do this? How are you doing it, okay? And make the adjustments accordingly based on what I'm giving you here. So I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, please leave me a comment. Jason, dude, totally don't get it. Or, hey, Jason, I get it. Thanks for the help. All right, let's move on to the riff that you're going to learn. So when we were doing that exercise just a minute ago, we were talking about putting the galloping technique into a real-world scenario. I like to call them real-world scenarios, as if you're playing an actual riff that's in a song, right? As opposed to just practicing the technique itself, which I want you to do both, okay? But I want to extend this lesson into this little riff that I came up with for you, okay? So I'm going to play it without the full mix. You just heard it in the full mix there. And by the way, remember, my Patreon members, my Patreon supporters, you guys have the backing tracks to play along with, as well as the tabs here. But here's the riff. Now we do something similar but in a different key, and there's a reason for that, and I'll share that in a second here. But all we're doing is we're playing the E and F power chords down here on the A and D strings, okay? We're on 7 and 9, and we're just going up half step there and then back. Pretty cool and kind of wicked sounding power chord riff there. Right after we play that, we go into that gallop, followed by some downstrokes, and then we alternate the two again, like we just did in the little exercise there, okay? So here's the riff. Let me play this a little bit slower here, okay? Now, this part where I go to the C chord, I just want to share this real quick. If you're just wanting to focus on the galloping and you don't want to do, just play the C chord. You can integrate the other later if you want, but all I'm doing is, instead of frets 3 and 5 on the A and D strings, I start out with 3 and 4. Palm mute that C note, then 3 and 5. Okay, but again, if you just want to focus on the galloping, just go, or just go. It doesn't matter. I really want you to focus on the galloping part if that's, what you're still struggling with at this point. So let's go over the actual galloping part of this. Okay, listen real closely. I'm going with the galloping, the back and forth, alternate picking. Then you'll hear the downstrokes. Okay, watch. I'm going to do a close-up on my right hand, the picking hand here. Okay. One thing I'll point out real quick, guys, is I wouldn't rely too much on the tablature, even though, if you're a Patreon supporter, you guys have the tabs. What I would focus on is just hearing what's going on and then translating that with your own hands, if that makes sense, okay? Because when you look at the tab, you're like, okay, 1, 2, 3, then 1, 2, it's like, it gets kind of like, it just, it can make your mind, at least for me, when I look at the tab for that, even though I wrote the tab out, it's like, this kind of looks like gibberish. I mean, I know it's correct or whatever, but I want you to really learn to use your ears, though, without always having to rely on the tabs, okay? Which, for my Patreon supporters, again, that's why I don't only give you tabs, I give you the backing tracks to play along with as well. All right, so what I do after that, really the same thing, same cadence, almost the same thing, just different key, different chords here. So I'm going to play this for you. So we're going between a B and a C power chord, so B, C, back to B, okay? frets 2 and 4 to 3 and 5 on the A and D strings, and then back. Now, what's kind of cool about this is you're just staying on that B string for the galloping part. And again, the galloping is the exact same cadence as what we just played, so that makes it really easy. Now, we're doing the same thing that we did with the C chord, but we're doing that with the G chord. And again, if you just want to focus on the galloping part right now, if you're having trouble with that, you're like, oh man, I got to play this chord with more notes, just play the regular G. That's okay, just focus on the galloping, and as you progress, of course, throw these other little chords in there. As I mentioned earlier, guys, this is truly one of my personal favorite methods to play when I'm playing metal rhythms, because it's just so cool. I'll tell you one thing that I struggle with. I like to share this kind of stuff with you guys too. I struggle playing galloping metal riffs like that and singing at the same time. Man, those two just clash. I don't know how some of these guys like Hetfield, Mustaine, of course several other artists out there that sing and play guitar. I've yet to be able to nail that down. In fact, there are a couple songs on my latest album, Masterpiece, that I released back in 2019. There, I think, are at least 2 songs that have the galloping in there while the singing is going on, and I have a hard time playing it live. So after that, I decided when I'm writing my own music, I'm going to make sure that I can sing and play it at the same time, because a lot of times, you know, what I do is I'll record my rhythms, I'll record the song in the studio here, then I might write lyrics for it later and then go lay down the vocals without having played it and sing it at the same time. So anyway, that's just a little tip for you guys when you're writing. I kind of got off track here, but that's just a quick tip. If you're writing your own music, make sure as you're writing the vocals and the lyrics and you're playing it that you can perform those at the same time if you intend on playing out live. Now, the specific technique itself, or I guess you call it a method, technique, tomato, tomato, whatever, but the galloping method, yeah, it can be difficult, guys, if you're still having trouble with it even after going through this lesson. What I would say is go back through this lesson again and maybe document the points. I'll have a timestamp to all the different parts of the video, like where I show you my picking technique, where I show you the one exercise we go through in the riff and so forth. I'll put the timestamps in the description, so you can easily just go in the description of the video and just click on whatever part that you need to go back through in the video. So feel free to do that. Now, one last thing before we end the video, I strongly encourage you to do this, and you guys have heard me say this on pretty much every lesson video. I want you to expand on the riff, that last riff that I shared with you in the lesson. I want you to add some more notes to it. Maybe change up the cadence of the galloping. Remember how we did the gallops of 1, 2, 3, and then we'd throw in those downstrokes with it. Maybe change that up. Maybe like flip that around. Add some more power chords to it, extend the riff, but just take it and make it your own. I always encourage you to do that. I think that's the main thing, along with the consistency of your practice. That's one of the main things that truly helps you become a better guitar player and musician, because now you're starting to create more. Okay, you're taking what I showed you and you're starting to create beyond that and make it your own. And this, I'll end on this note, no pun intended, but this to me is how you develop your signature style and sound. And I think that's the most important thing that you can do as a guitar player, or regardless of what instrument you play, or if you're a singer. Always focus on developing your own signature style and sound. So guys, I'll leave you with that. Real quick though, make sure you check out the description of this video. Remember, I've got the timestamps to different parts. I've also got my free practice guide, Metal Riffs and Licks. That's in there, so if you don't have that, definitely grab that. If you guys already have that and are not in my guitar courses, I've got some online guitar courses. All of that is in the description of this video, so do me a huge favor and spend some time in there. Guys, please give this video a thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed and all that good stuff. I've got much more content, as you guys know, coming to you. And until the next video, as always, keep it metal. Oh, one more surprise. Let's try that riff on a 7 string.